Okay, think, Mark, think. You've been through this entire product, and you haven't found a flaw. But you've got to find something. This is a Lost Omens line product from Paizo, and you are famous for nitpicking these books. There's gotta be something here. What's that? Oh, Paizo did not include a spells section? Whew! I was worried there for a second. I'm glad I'm going to have something to complain about. Today, we're going to talk about the new Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide on today's episode of the Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello, travelers and tourists. My name is Mark, and I'm the Local Disaster Tour Guide. That's right, I'm a storyteller that is prepared to deal 2d10 mental damage through the use of my powerful, pedantic, rambling redundancy technique. Go! Oh, come on. I'm only doing what Paizo told me I have to do in order to use this focus spell. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and welcome to my review of the Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide, which should be releasing, I think, the same day that this video is going up, if I've got my dates lined up correctly. This book is the latest book in the Pathfinder Lost Omens series, a line of setting-specific books for the Golarion campaign setting, focused on the Tian Xia region, which is the Asian storytelling and Asian mythology inspired portion of the Golarion campaign setting. This is the second Tian Xia book in the Lost Omens line for Pathfinder 2e, with the previous book being the Lost Omens World Guide, and I have previously done a review of that product, so if you're interested in seeing my thoughts on the Lost Omens Tian Xia World Guide, I'll throw a card up on screen and probably put a link in the video description so you can go check that out. But one thing to be aware of is these two products, the Tian Xia World Guide and this new product, the Tian Xia Character Guide, are designed to work hand in hand in order to support, well, what should be obvious, stories that are set in the Tian Xia region of the Golarion campaign setting. By the way, before I go any further in this video, I want to go ahead and say I apologize up front if I am pronouncing anything incorrectly. I honestly get really embarrassed when I mess up terminology like that, and I know it's going to happen, so just please help me out in that regard. But as I mentioned, the Tian Xia region is the portion of the Golarion campaign setting that very obviously draws its inspiration from Asian mythology, from Asian storytelling and tropes and different things like that. And if you're interested in that style of storytelling, then the Lost Omens World Guide and Character Guide are the two books that are really intended to support those kinds of stories. Now, before we start talking about the Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide, I do need to go ahead and tell you that Paizo did send me a free review PDF of this book, but I want to go ahead and say that Paizo has not attempted to influence anything in this video in any way. I have been given complete creative freedom, and the opinions you hear expressed in this video are my own. Still, I do want to be upfront that Paizo did send me this PDF, and I would like to say thank you to Paizo for giving me this opportunity. That naturally leads into the disclaimer I always give in these videos. Do remember that the opinions in this video are just that. They are opinions. They are the thoughts of one random guy on the internet, and the best review of any product will always be to test a product out for yourself before making a purchase decision. Still, I hope that this video and the overview of contents provided in this video gives you a bit of an idea of what to expect and what Paizo is offering in the Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide. Now, before I get too far into this review, I do want to note that Paizo has made a very important change in their approach to the Tian Xia region in Golarion as part of the Lost Omens series, in that the world guide and the character guide are very obvious in who they are targeting. The Lost Omens world guide, the previous product, is very obviously intended to be a game master facing product. The content, the information that is found in that book is very obviously intended for the storyteller side of the screen. There is stuff that players will find interesting, but it's very much structured in a way that's intended to be used by storytellers who are preparing to run a game in Tian Xia. With this, the new book, the Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide, this book is very clearly intended to be player-facing. In keeping with the name of this book, it is filled with options for player characters who want to participate in these types of stories. And I want to go ahead and say up front that whether or not Tian Xia is a region of Golarion that really appeals to you, I have to say that this change in approach with the Lost Omens series is honestly a very, very good change. In my coverage of the Lost Omens series, I have been very critical of Paizo in the past because the books often feel very scattershot, they often feel very unfocused, and I've walked away from a lot of the Lost Omen products enjoying the content, but at the same time feeling let down by the content. And part of that problem has been many of the past products in the Lost Omens line have had to pull double duty. They've needed to have content focused towards game masters and the storyteller side of the screen, but then they also need to have content that is very much focused towards players and options that players might want to use. And that double duty nature of a lot of Lost Omens products have led to a lot of the books just feeling incomplete to me. But with the Tian Xia books, the first book, the one previous to this, they made it a point to focus that book very much towards storytellers, and that has freed them up in this book, the second one, the character guide, for them to focus on things that players are going to enjoy. And I think that that clear focus in the previous product and this product has led to a noticeable improvement in the quality of both books. Even if Tian Xia does not represent the kind of stories that you and your table might be interested in playing, I do think this represents a positive step forward for the Lost Omens lines, and I hope that Paizo will continue to focus future Lost Omen books in this manner, because it honestly leads to a better product. So what I'd like to do in this video today is first give you some of my overall thoughts about the Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide, and then do a really rapid fly-through of some of the contents in this book to help give you an idea of what you will find if you pick this product up for yourself. Now, I will say that because this is an overview video, I'm not going to have a lot of time to deep dive a lot of the content in here, and honestly there is a lot of content worthy of deep diving. Right now, Jake over on the channel Wisdom Check is doing a lot of deep dive content on the Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide, and if you're looking for some really good in-depth discussions, Wisdom Check is doing some great videos on this content, and I would encourage you to go over there and check out some of the videos he's put up. I'll throw a link in the video description if you'd like to see one of those. Still, before we go any further, I do need to do the YouTube call to action, so please remember, if you enjoy content like this, do all of the stuff that helps to support the channel. Like, share, and subscribe. You can check out my free Discord and my Patreon. All of those links will be in the video description. But with all that out of the way, let's get started. So if you can't tell from the discussion that I've already put forward in this video, I am very impressed with this book. The Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide is a player character facing book. It is intended to be a resource to give players options to create characters that fit well inside of the Tian Xia portion of the Golarion campaign setting, and Paizo has crammed this book full of options. I am honestly kind of blown away by just the amount of stuff that Paizo has given. And if you're a player who is interested in Asian-themed storytelling or Asian mythology-themed storytelling, anything along those lines, I think you're going to find a lot of great content in this book. The wealth of content in this book offers a ton of variety for Tian Xia-themed characters, And honestly, I feel like this video is not going to do this book justice for just how incredibly over the top Paizo went in giving us options. Seriously, it's pretty amazing. In fact, I really only have one complaint about this book, and that is there's not a spells section. There are a few Tian Xia themed focus spells that show up in this book, but there isn't a dedicated spells section that can be used to expand the Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal spell list to include Tian Xia themed magic, and that is the one letdown I have with this product. I would have liked to have seen at least a small section expanding on the spells available in the game to help my wizard, bard, cleric, druid, or whatever other spellcaster I might be playing get a little bit more Tian Xia flavor without having to dive into an ancestry or an archetype to pick that flavor up. Still, apart from the lack of Tian Xia themed spells in this book, the overall breadth of content is very impressive, and I think that makes this book a very high quality product. Diving into the contents of this book, Chapter 1 is an introduction to the Tian Xia region that is geared towards people who are going to be playing characters inside of a Tian Xia game. You have a map of Tian Xia, and then the introduction is going to dive straight into the regions that are found in this part of Golarion and kind of the themes and stories that are associated with those different regions, followed very quickly by a list of backgrounds that are appropriate for Tian Xia characters. And while there are a few good offerings among the common and uncommon backgrounds, for example, I really enjoy the addition of the gossip background. I think that's a fun inclusion here. It's actually the rare backgrounds that I really enjoy. My favorite is the new fated rival background, where your character has some sort of destined foe that you and them are going to come to blows at some point in the future. I think that is a classic storytelling trope. I love the fact that they've created a background for this. And the background even allows for the fact that once this battle between you and the other character happens, once that rivalry is resolved, there is a possibility that you might then become best friends with your former rival, and they have rules variations for the clashing with your rival or the befriending your rival outcomes. Very cool background, absolutely love it, tons of fun. Next up, you get a discussion of magic in the spirit world, and honestly, this discussion kind of highlights why I'm disappointed that a spell section was not included. They spend time talking about the spirit world in Tian Xia. You get a discussion of how magic works and how people view magic. You get a discussion of how Tian Xia views the elements. And you even get a discussion of some of the different schools of thought that pop up among spellcasters in Tian Xia. So you get a pretty good discussion of how characters in Tian Xia think about magic, which is why I think it's sad that beyond a few focus spells sprinkled throughout the text, we really don't get Tian Xia flavored spells in this book. It really is the one thing I feel like Paizo should have included that we are missing out on. Next up, we get a discussion of the Dragon Champions of the Zodiac and what it means to live in a region of the world known as the Dragon Empire. This leads very quickly into a discussion of the peoples of Tian Xia, and it begins first with a discussion of certain ancestries that are in Pathfinder and what their experience might be inside the region known as Tian Xia. First up, we have the Amurans, also known as the Catfolk, and sorry that I have to jump on this topic again, but seriously, Paizo, if Amuran is the cultural name for the Catfolk, Amuran should just be the name that you use instead of Catfolk. It helps my immersion when I see Amurans used as the title for the section rather than the word Catfolk. Starfinder gets this right. Paizo, do more of this in Pathfinder, please. But we get a discussion of Amurans and elves. We get a discussion of the Imperial Dragons, of halflings and hobgoblins, humans, Jurogumo, and honestly, I'm not going to keep reading all of them because there's quite a lot here. Just know that Paizo gives us a very good overview of what some of the standard Pathfinder ancestries experience might be like inside of Tian Xia. Jumping down to page 35, we get a discussion of the Dokebi Goblins. This is a new heritage for the Goblin ancestry in Pathfinder 2e. And, by the way, I want you to notice this is page 35 of a 138-page book. And, basically from this point on, everything in this book is player-facing crunch. That means over 103 pages of a 138-page product is dedicated solely to options for player characters. I think that is absolutely incredible, and one of the major reasons that this book is so well done. But here we have a new heritage for goblins, followed by a new versatile heritage, the Hunger Seed, to help represent characters that are descended from Oni. Then we have a new heritage option for gnomes, the Kijimuna, and 2 new heritage options for kobolds that are from Tian Xia, both the Heaven Scribe and Mighty Fall kobolds. By the way, I know I'm not stopping to focus on a lot of the mechanical details here, but do you see this kaiju's footfalls down here? Yes, there is a brand of kobolds in Tian Xia that are obsessed with kaiju. I absolutely love this. It's probably one of my favorite things in this book. Next, we have 2 new heritages for the Leshy, 2 new heritages for the Lizard Folk, and then an impressive 4 new heritages for sprites that are from Tian Xia. We have a new heritage for the Poppet as well. It's called the Tsukumagami, though if I'm being honest, when I read the Tsukumagami Poppet heritage, I'm honestly thinking of most of the characters from the Enchanted Castle and Beauty and the Beast. I know that's not the intended usage in this particular section, but if you've ever wanted to play a Beauty and the Beast themed campaign, you got some options now. And then next up, we have a new heritage for Kitsune as well. We also get the new Shimmer Tongue heritage for the Nagaji, and with all of those out of the way, we finally get to dive into the actual new ancestries presented in this book, the first of which is the Samsaran. Now, the Samsaran is an ancestry that is tied to the idea of the cycle of reincarnation, and I don't want to dive too deep into the lore here, but there are some very interesting ideas present in Samsaran. I will say that I've seen some discussion online about whether or not Samsarans would have been better portrayed as a full ancestry or as a versatile heritage. I can see the arguments both ways, but Paizo ended up going with Samsarans as their own unique ancestry, and they are presented here. The next option are the Serengei, which should be understood as its own distinct ancestry from the Minotaurs that were presented in Howl of the Wild. There are some important differences between the 2 ancestries. Just to give you a bit of a teaser, you can actually see in the Serengei heritages that they are very much tied to the phases of the moon, which is something that helps to set them apart from the Minotaur. Then we have what is far and away my favorite new ancestry in this book, the Tanuki, which are shape-shifting raccoons whose heritages are tied to their virtues. I don't want to dive too far into the Tanuki here, but you can see from the titles alone. You have the ascetic Tanuki, the even-tempered Tanuki, the courageous Tanuki, the steadfast Tanuki, and the virtuous Tanuki, and this should tell you that the Tanuki take their virtues very, very seriously. Also, here's a picture of an even-tempered Tanuki, just to help give you an idea of what Tanuki virtue truly looks like. I'm serious, I love the Tanuki ancestry, and I'm really sad that I don't have time to deep dive them in this book because they are amazing. Next up we have the Wayang ancestry, and then the Yaksha ancestry, and finally the Yaogai ancestry as well. And all of that together represents almost 54 pages of new ancestry and heritage options for player characters in the Tian Xia setting. That is an incredible wealth of options, and we haven't even touched character classes and character archetypes, which is the next section of the book. So let's dive in. First up, we have the 5 Breath Vanguard dedication, which is designed for monks that like to mix multiple elemental stances. And then we have some new options for the Martial archetype, a series of feats built around the Strategist stance allowing you to play a martial that really focuses on battlefield strategy. Next up we have the Spirit Warrior, and this one is a little complex. I don't want to dive too deep into them, but you may notice a couple of feats that come with the word Oath. We have Kaiju Defense Oath, Sacred Wilds Oath, and Trickster Bane Oath. Now, prior to the remaster, there were a line of champion class feats known as Oath feats that were removed during the remaster. We have been told that Oath feats will be returning in a future Lost Omens book, and I do think it's interesting that we get to see some Oath feats here as well, which kind of tells me that some of the play space that was originally reserved specifically for champions is now going to become available to other characters as well. And if you want some more information, you can dig into the Spirit Warrior and the details of it, but I just wanted to point that out because we're seeing an expansion of where and how oaths appear inside of the game. Then of course we have what is probably the most well advertised archetype in this entire book, the Starlight Sentinel, which is literally Paizo giving you the rules to play an anime magical girl at your next Pathfinder 2e game. By the way, even though they're appealing to the magical girl trope, they do specifically state that the Starlight Sentinel is not restricted solely to female characters. You can totally have guys who are Starlight Sentinels as well, and they even give a funny in-universe explanation for why everyone thinks that the Starlight Sentinel has to be a magic girl. But allow me to say, Paizo is having a ton of fun with this archetype, and it is well worth the read. Next up, you get a section called Dance and Art, which feels like a little bit of a break in terms of what Paizo is offering until you scroll down a couple of pages and find a new Fan Dancer archetype, which helps shows a connection between the cultural design of the Tian Xia books and the character options that you can find in that setting. Next, we get a discussion of cooking in Tian Xia, along with the new Wandering Chef archetype, and several rituals and alchemical foods to go along with that archetype. We also get a discussion of medicine in the Tian Xia campaign setting, including some new medical skill feats and class feats. Next, we get a discussion of Tian Innovation, which leads naturally into new feats for the Inventor class. And then we get a couple of new studies or subclass options for the Magus class. By the way, I've never figured out the correct way to pronounce this word. I know I would mess it up, that's why I haven't tried to say it. I've seen it 100 times, but I'm not sure the right way to pronounce this. Next up, we get a new archetype known as the Cultivator, which doesn't tell you much about the flavor in the title, but the first sentence gives you a pretty good clue where this archetype is going. Cultivators are seekers of immortality who practice occult disciplines to refine their ki. Next, we get the Familiar Sage archetype, which is designed to work hand in hand with the Familiar Master archetype as well, and this is designed specifically to give you more options if your familiar is an important part of your character concept. Then we get a discussion of martial arts and different martial arts philosophies that exist in Tian Xia, along with new martial arts feats and especially new monk feats to help portray these different philosophies and paths that your character might follow. And by the way, it should surprise no one to find out one of my favorites is the new Kaiju stance option in this section. Next up, we get a discussion of animal companions and familiars that are appropriate to the Tian Xia setting. Here's a quick glimpse at the familiars page. And that is followed by Tian Xia equipment, including new weapons, new magic items, new materials, and even some new artifacts, such as the well-advertised Staff of Sun Wukong that almost distracted me from noticing the new artifact called the Bow of Sun Slaying. Nice of you to try to slip that one past me, Paizo. And then once you finish up the new equipment, you move on to a glossary and index and all of that sort of information. Taken together, Paizo has crammed an incredible amount of content into this book. It feels focused and relevant, and if you are interested in playing a Tian Xia style campaign, this is a fantastic resource. I really feel like Paizo did a great job of drawing from Asian storytelling and Asian mythology and the different ideas that surround those concepts, I feel like Paizo knocked this book out of the park. And really and truthfully, my only complaint with this product is that outside of a few focus spells, we really don't get any Tian Xia themed spells in this book. That is the only thing that I would have liked to seen added to this product, but beyond that, this book is fantastic. The Tian Xia World Guide is focused very heavily towards storytellers and is a fantastic product for storytellers, and because that book really isn't intended for players, they were able to take this book, the Tian Xia Character Guide, and really just dig straight into the kind of stuff that players are going to want to have access to if they are running characters that are in the Tian Xia setting. So honestly, I've got to say, both from a big picture design perspective and from a detailed digging into the offerings that Paizo gives us, this is easily one of the best books in the Lost Omens line that Paizo has produced for Pathfinder 2e, and I really want to see more books like this in the future. Seriously, Paizo, it actually took me a couple of days to notice that you didn't give me a spells section because I was having so much fun digging through all the stuff that you did include. While I myself tend more towards Western styles of storytelling, I can understand the appreciation that a lot of people have for Eastern style storytelling, and I think that Paizo really did a fantastic job with this product. I found this book very compelling. I found this book a lot of fun to dig into, and honestly, there's still a lot of stuff that I'm trying to fully absorb about this product. So even if I can nitpick the lack of a spell section, I've got to say Paizo knocked this one out of the park, and Paizo, I hope to see more books like this in the future. This book is a ton of fun. Still, the time has come to turn the conversation over to you. This video has been a broad overview of what the Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide brings to the table, but I haven't had a lot of time to dig into the specifics. So let me know a few things. First, what are your thoughts about the Lost Omens Tian Xia Character Guide? Do you like this product? Do you like the options that Paizo presents? And like me, would you have liked to have seen a spell section included in this book? Then, the second thing I'd like to know is, would you like me to come back and talk about any of the content in this book in more detail? There's obviously a lot of fun ideas in here, so there's definitely a lot of stuff that I'd like to come back and revisit. If there's something specific you'd really like me to dig into in a future video, let me know that as well, and I will definitely consider it. And of course, let me know if there's something about this book that I completely missed that you think people should be aware of as well. Of course, while you're participating in the conversation, don't forget to do all the other stuff that supports the channel. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out my free Discord and Patreon. All the links are in the video description. But, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Have a wonderful day.